Hello, everybody. My name is Orasia Nyawade. Welcome to the second episode of the Vuuqa podcast. Today, I have Nono Sekhoto, who is our guest, and she will be talking about all things agri. She's a self motivated businesswoman who has built a remarkable career in the agricultural sector, focusing primarily in agriculture and empowering youth and women and new entrants in the agriculture sector. She leverages her financial services background together with her astute entrepreneurial skills to distinguish herself as a new breed of future agriculturists in the developmental space, nationally and globally. She believes that engaging in the right platforms and collaborating with the right partners can propel her efforts to contribute to the transformation of the agricultural industry in her country and the rest of Africa. Welcome, Nono. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm finding yourself. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you. Can you please, that was such a powerful intro. I just want to know from you, who are you in 2021? Have you updated? Have you added some things that you're doing? Are you still the same? Tell us.
Yeah, so in general, that really sums up all the work that I'm doing. The one thing that's really big, though, is I've really identified a gap in the agricultural sector in supporting young people. So I not only have been working at the farm, I also work in the industry, in the focusing around supporting young people to get into agriculture, around finding jobs and all sorts of opportunities. I've also got a post at African Leadership Academy, which started last year, and I'm building a program that's galvanizing a network of young people from across the continent who are interested in building careers and running ventures in the agricultural sector. And it's across the entire value chain, so it's not only in farming. So yeah, so my focus is really around, as I said, collaborating with the right stakeholders to bring about those opportunities, to open up those doors for those young people, and also to expose them to the many opportunities that really exist in the sector.
Thank you so much. And that's exactly why we have you on today. I would like to hear all about those opportunities in detail. I'm sure the VUCA audience is also excited to know about that end to end of the farming industry. So, could you please talk about some of the initiatives that you've been involved in and the impacts that they've had on young farmers?
Yeah. So, just to give you a bit of background, when I started, I joined my father as a young farmer. So now maybe I'm not so young. Just 10 years ago when I joined my father on, I know I look it, but age says otherwise. So when I joined my father as a young person, working at a commercial farm, it was, very well established. It was quite a large enterprise that we're running with a variety of mixed commodities. And I think for me, what was interesting was trying to see how I can get support for to further what we were doing, because we still were learning. We still needed access to more funding, more training, and also access to markets. And so when we reached out to one of the organizations that we could get help from, which is African Farmers Association of South Africa, I then realized that it was an organization made up of people like us who had just entered the industry and also trying to figure things out. And so as a member, put up my hand, and then I was able to, I was appointed to run the young farmers. So AFASA Youth. So AFASA is the abbreviation for the organization. So I actually headed up AFASA Youth nationally and really started the initiatives that would galvanize young people. So find them. Are the young people actually farming? We always hear that young people are not interested in agriculture. So I had to make sure that I can disprove that, which I believe I did. So over the years, I've started a Facebook group to kind of invite young people interested in working in agriculture. And now it's sitting at like something like 9,700 people. And it's all young people, either they are farming, either they want to get into farming, or either they are studying in agricultural studies. And so that was really the initial way to say, okay, great. So there are young people. Now what? And then, so some of the initiatives was really trying to understand what were the challenges that they were facing. Were they similar to mine? Were they, and how would we be able to kind of solve them and overcome those challenges? And so the initiatives that I did was really to engage with corporate stakeholders who could provide a variety of support for young farmers, government departments that were relevant, obviously, in agriculture, as well as I said, globally and internationally. And that's when we also were able to reach out to World Farmers Organization. And I also did, some work around how it is that young people needed to be supported. And so, the initiatives that I've done have attracted quite a lot of attention. I mean, I've even been able to go to the UN to go and actually put together thoughts and ideas of how we believe young people should be supported in this industry. And in general, the initiatives really were highlighting, one, that young people are in the industry and they're interested and they're ready to take up arms, but the support is critical for them to be successful, because only once you start seeing successful young people will you be able to attract more young people in the industry.
Wow, I'm so happy to learn that I am speaking to the right person who is on the ground with these initiatives. And I can just hear the passion in your voice. And that is actually leading me to my next question, which is what opportunities or gaps are there for young farmers in South Africa and the continent at large? Like, let's go deep into what are those actual opportunities, because as you're saying, you've been on the ground, you know what's going on, you are the leadership in this space. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so funny enough, obviously, when we're talking about agriculture, everyone automatically thinks farming. But in realities, we're not all going to be farmers. I tell everybody that I am what I'll say I'm a farmer because I earn my income from a farming enterprise, but I'm not a farmer because I've not really studied production. So I do not. You will never see me in the garden or in the fields, unless if I'm going to check. But I'm not the one who's really digging or milking the cows or whatever the case may be. I am focused on the skills that I bring to the table, which is in business management and so in finance, and that's what I do. Now, the opportunities that I realize is that it's in the skills we already possess that we can bring into the sector. So, for example, there's a big cohort of young people that I deal with that study agriculture. They're based all around the world, and already, if if you're already studying agriculture, it means you already have a very critical skill, especially in Africa, because the majority of our farmers on the continent are smallholder farmers who've been farming with traditional ways. Nothing wrong with traditional ways, but because of climate change and a lot of change in what's happening, you need to be able to bring in some sort of learned or studied or scientific way of doing things. And so the opportunities that I make visible to these young people is that you already can be an expert advisor to farmers that are literally down the road from you, because all of them, majority of them, come from farming backgrounds. They live in communities where farming is the main source of income, and yet when they come back, they feel like they have no opportunities. They still need to have land, and I'm saying, you don't need to have land to make the best of what the opportunities are available in the sector. You can literally start servicing all those farmers around you to provide them advice and get them to maybe produce better, increase their yields. There's a lot of businesses that young people are also running that are in providing access to market to such farmers. So that's why you now see IT platforms that enable farmers to also have access to market in that way. Logistic is a big one. If you're a farmer, you're supposed to be on the farm farming. So maybe somebody else can come and take your produce for you. that's an opportunity in its own to be able to support farmers. So so that's a big thing around. I think that's kind of what's lacking in, especially in South African context. When we market agriculture as a sector, everybody just thinks of land and farms. And we're saying the sector is so big, food production is always going to be a business of interest. Like, we're never going to stop making food. So, but it's about understanding all the variety of opportunities within the sector.
Yeah.
So just to also highlight a few, so there's research. Research allows us to keep producing better things and kind of developing, especially now that climate change is a big issue. So research is very important. Then, as I mentioned, there's marketing of various types of food that's coming up, on how it is to eat. That's a whole industry on its own. Marketing of produce from the farmers to maybe retail or to consumers. That's also something there. The other one is cold storage. It's so important, especially on the continent. Our weather is so warm, which means fresh produce can't be exposed for too long. Yeah. You need to have cold storage. Now that brings engineers. The minute you start talking about equipment and mechanization, that's engineers. So you need engineers in this sector as well. So yeah, I mean, the opportunities, I can go on and on. Policy, there's young people who are really going to have to be involved in the departments. That's a whole new range of opportunities there, where we see that young people can actually get into. And then obviously the big corporates. The big corporates, you have a proper organizational structure. How do you have people focusing on HR, in agriculture? How do you focus on finance in agriculture? Economics. So there's literally a lot of opportunities in the sector. The only thing is that we need to find ways to expose it so that people can see this as an industry of opportunities, as opposed to how we as Black people have seen it as an industry of poverty and hard work.
I have definitely been a victim of looking at the industry and just thinking about, tomatoes, I have my kitchen garden. And a couple of years ago, I actually got the opportunity to visit Brazil, and they're big on farming. And they were endorsing every single thing that you're saying right now, where the one thing that stood out to me was, for example, a cow. And they told us that a cow they use the entire animal, like from the hide, the hooves, the tail. If something is going to go and make shoes, then that's what it's going to do in retail. If one is going to be part of meat. And I remember growing up, I thought it's just, okay, maybe it's just a ceremony. There's a big wedding, we had a cow and that's it. And you're always seeing your produce in the end, and you don't know what happened throughout the entire system for it to get to you. So thank you so much for enlightening us in that aspect, especially like logistics. Like right now, you're just talking about engineers. Like exactly, just you have a skill, just find out how you can apply it within this agri industry. And thank you for that. Now, let's get practical again and give us 3 tips for a young person who would like to get into the farming industry. 3 tips.
Yeah, so I've actually been coaching, I guess, a few young people, giving them ideas around how it is you start, because that's always the hardest part. So the first one for me, I always say, research is very important. And unfortunately, if you don't know what you're researching, that's also just as hard. But you've got to make sure that you know that you've done your own research. And if you are then going to get help from someone, you're starting off, listen, this is what I found out, but I'm not understanding A and B and C. So I get a lot of people just like, I want to get into agriculture. What do I do?
With no personal research of their own.
Exactly. So I guess it's also around guiding what kind of research you should look for. So step 2, it would be, you need to understand where you are situated, because when you're farming, it's around land. So you need to be based somewhere. So that's the first thing you would need to understand. Where are you and what's happening in your area? That's the type of research you can start with. who's farming what are the big farmers farming, what markets have you seen, are you next to a town, are you next to a city, are you next to a village, what are they buying, what are they eating? That's research that you need to understand, because if you're going to be in farming, you're going to be producing mainly food that is going to go into a market. So for me, the first research is really understanding where you are going to be based, what's happening in your area, and kind of get an idea of what's already existing. Because sometimes we think, agriculture is different. A lot of times you think when you're building a business, you need the competitive edge. So you need to compete and be better than others. Yes, of course. But in agriculture, there is a lot of collaboration, because food production is just something that's going to keep growing and growing. So if there's people in the area that are buying certain things, that's probably what you should produce.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the research that I think you need to think about. Then the other one would be, so that's the second. The third tip would be connect with others in the space. For me, I think that's probably one of the most important things that I've done, because I've been able to literally build a career based on understanding, having met people and really understanding where the gaps are, what are they dealing with, and then realizing, so many people need this, or so many people don't understand this. And that's why I've identified that actually the space of youth in agriculture is ginormous, to use a funny word, because globally, this is what everybody's struggling with. But I wouldn't have known that had I not really interacted with people and be part of what's happening in the industry. So those are the 3 tips that I would give someone, because in all honesty, depending on where you are, the support, the organization, stakeholders that you have are very different. And you'll only really know what's happening in your area if you know people who are already in the system. So that's really what I think is important. So I can't tell you that there's this one place that everybody can go and go get help. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. So those are the 3 tips that I have.
No, thank you so much. And I've seen a theme that is coming out in this entrepreneurial industry is networking, which is essentially what you're talking about. And you can't work in silos. You need to be able to reach out. You need to be listening to this podcast today. Go check out what's her Facebook group, what's going on in there, network with other people, and collaborate, which is another word that you've used that I really appreciate, because again, you cannot work alone. It's important to find out. You don't need to lean on someone completely, which is what you said with the research. Go do your own kind of work so that you know where you're coming in from. But also just reach out to other people and find out. You might find out there's gaps that you didn't even think that existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The best knowledge is really through lived experiences of others.
I hear you. And the last question is, I know you said there's not one location, but let's just touch on what resources are available. So for example, are there grants? Is there funding? Is there mentorship where a young farmer can go for support? So just
yeah. And in all honesty, as I said, there's no one-stop shop. It really depends what you need. So depending on, I always say, depending on the type of farming you'd like to do, which means like different commodities. So if you're looking for poultry, you want to go into poultry, or want to go into grain, or want to go into a piggery, then maybe, that's what you need to search. Search for associations that are commodity associations. There's a lot of information you can get from there. So Poultry SA, Pork SA, Grain SA, Potato SA. So all those type of organizations really provide a lot of information, as well as support in a variety of ways, especially for people who are coming into the industry. So it would be important for you that's a nice point of call to understand. Then there's also the farming side, which is the actual land and how you have access. A lot of people have a lot of questions around that. How do you access land? The departments, yes, there are processes. It's not the same everywhere. So the other point of call is to go to your local municipality and find out what are they doing and what information do they have for startup farmers. So that's one place. The other place would be if you feel like maybe you have your own funds, or maybe you already have a business that you have an idea of, you can go and actually Google farm to rent. So you can rent farms, and all over the country there's farms that are available for rent. Yeah. So it'll just depend where you are, and then you see how you access land. And then the other one would be, there's a lot of organizations. Vuuqa is a big one that provides training for for people to start up businesses in the sector. And they would take you through how to prepare a business plan, how to actually make it work, how to access markets. So they provide a variety of training to be able to actually start a business. So yeah, as I say, there's no one place. But those are a few ideas of where you can actually reach out to.
And I really appreciate what you're saying as well, because one thing that I've learned in the past week is that instead of asking how someone can help you, try and switch it around and go into these places, the municipalities, wherever, and tell them that you have time to volunteer for them. To them rather, where can I plug in, what is it that you need help in, and through that you start to learn a lot, and again figure out, oh, this gap exists, okay, what can I do? And then later on, when you want to do your own thing, they have an easier time supporting you, because they've seen your work ethic, they've seen your interests, they know where to plug you in and continuously introduce you to other people. So thank you so much for that. Do you have any parting shots? Is there something you would like to give light to? It's from me. I'm done. Thank you so much. This is your chance. Let's go.
Okay. Well, the work that I do is, as much as it is exposing young people to the variety of opportunities, because we really need smart people to choose agriculture, because food is important for all of us, especially as our countries and communities are growing. Our population is growing, and we are always going to need food security, but we need to make sure that we have solutions that will overcome all the challenges that really exist and are still coming in the sector. So that's the one part. But the other thing that's important is to really speak to stakeholders and be in front of people who are decision makers, who will be able to support young people to get into this sector and really be successful. It's not going to be just the young people's interest. It's not going to be enough. They need proper support, and I will be creating a career to make sure that happens.
Thank you so much. That is Nono Sekhoto, and you will be able to find this interview link in our upcoming March issue, which is around the agri-industry. It will be dropping on March 9th. So thank you so much, and cheers. That's it.
Great. Thanks.